everyone. This is Animezingly Baka, the amazingly stupid podcast all about anime and movies and TV shows and comics and maybe a little bit of manga too. Who's to say? Who's to say? But in thinking about this here podcast and why it failed so quickly when I brought it back the second time earlier in the year, I realized while I watch anime every day, nowhere near as much as I used to back in the day. There were times where I could watch a whole series in one day. That doesn't really happen anymore. But in trying to think of how to do an anime podcast weekly, it just didn't make all that much sense. And I didn't love putting all of my other watching content thoughts in the Pixelated Sausage Show. And so it left me with this one idea. What if I brought back Animezingly Baka, and instead of it just being about anime, it's also about just regular old movies and TV shows, cartoons, etc. What if it was just the catch-all for everything non-gaming related that I engage with? Hell, if I get back into music, I could talk about music here, but that's probably never going to happen. And it goes well with the name of the show, Animezingly Baka, amazingly stupid. What's more stupid than a show that has anime in its title not being only about anime? This is it. This is it. So that is the plan going forward with Animezingly Baka. It is the podcast all about anime and movies and TV shows and maybe comics and manga too. Probably more manga than comics, honestly, because I haven't read a comic in I have no idea how long it's been, and I probably won't read much outside of that. Outside of what? Nothing. But I do want to start actually getting into manga reading. I finally downloaded the app for Shonen Jump, the Viz Media Shonen Jump membership, which I've been a paid member of for almost 4 years now, and I've never read a single chapter. So should probably take advantage of that. And I'll probably also sign up for their Viz manga subscription, $2 a month. Even though who knows how much I'll engage with that or Shonen Jump for that matter, but I like supporting the industry in what ways I can. And they're very good deals if you do read a lot. But there's that. And then any other things I don't know. By the way, I am Marcus Nez, your host, of course. If you've not watched any of my other stuff, then it's not really of course. It's not of course. Of course, I am a horse. My thoughts, they are the worst. Ugh. But in terms of what I've been watching and all that jazz, it would have been a good time here to look into this upcoming season to see what appeals to me, what I'll be watching. But I have forgotten that we're at that point because we just wrapped up this past season, Solo Leveling, obviously the big one of that season. And I'll talk about what shows I've watched anime wise at the tail end of the show. I feel like with this new format for Animezingly Baka, the structure would be everything else at the start and then anime for last. Save the best for last, as we all say. As I say, at least. And I guess I kind of do that. Anyone else, when they eat, do you tend to save an extra large bite for your last bite? Because that's what I do. Whenever I'm eating any meal, I save the last bite. I save the biggest bite for last. Is what I'm trying to get at. My God, when I have my little frozen banana dessert type dish, I nibble at the slices that I cut up and put in the freezer. But for the last one, I just eat the thing whole. When I have my white egg omelet, I cut it up into pretty even pieces, except for one, is larger than the rest, and you better believe that's the one I'm eating last. When I have my big old bowl of oatmeal, I eat a certain amount with each spoonful, typically. Well, that last spoonful, you better believe it's bigger than the other ones. I don't know, it's just a habit I do, and I'm not sure if that's a common thing or a less common thing. But before I get to the anime I have watched, which include Solo Leveling, Doctor Stone. Ooh, what was the name of this current season, this last season? It was Doctor Stone Science Future, is that the name of it? As well as Apothecary Diaries and some other stuff. I started Bleach this year, which I'll get to. I've got up to the arc where they stopped the one girl from getting executed in the not the spirit realm. I took a break. I've taken a long break because I think I'm gonna watch the rest of it dubbed. We'll get all that when we get to the anime section. So the main thing I want to talk about in terms of the other stuff I've been watching is Star Wars. Because with this year, at the beginning of this year, I decided to do a big Star Wars rewatch. Well, rewatch and watch, where I would rewatch, less watch all of the movies and all the shows, including the animated shows, anything that's canon. So I started with all of the live action movies first, watched them all on their own because I'm doing it in chronological order, but I wanted to watch all the movies on their own first. So watched all the prequels, original trilogy, the new trilogy, Solo, Rogue One. What other ones are there? Are there any other standalone ones? I feel like I'm missing something. But I watched all those and then moved on to the series, starting with the Clone Wars movie, which is pretty awful. The Clone Wars series, all the live action series, as well as Rebels, Tales of the Empire and Jedi, ooh, Bad Batch, and is there anything else? I just recently finished Mandalorian season 3 and the Book of Boba Fett. So all I have left, I held off on Andor out of order so that I could watch it just as the second season is starting. I felt like that was a good idea there. So all I have left is Ahsoka and the Skeleton Crew. And I don't know if I'm going to bother with Star Wars Resistance because it looks like something I'm not going to enjoy. But who knows? And then after the fact, I'm going to check out Visions. I keep wanting to call it Legends. Visions and the two-part miniseries Clone Wars from the creator of Samurai Jack. But what I want to talk about mainly are the things I've watched for the first time, starting with Clone Wars. So I always held off on Clone Wars in part because I was never the biggest Star Wars fan. I'm still not the biggest Star Wars fan in the grand scheme of things. But Clone Wars 1 was probably on some cable channel that I didn't have access to at the time. But also, I never really loved the aesthetic. The art style kind of rubbed me the wrong way. And to this day, it still does not appeal to me. And it's something I more so got used to than had it grow on me. I like some of the character designs. I think Obi-Wan looks pretty good. And some of the other ancillary characters look all right. I grew to like how Anakin looks in the show. But overall, I still don't love that style. But in terms of the actual show and the story and all that, first and foremost, I feel like I have to get this out of the way. I think Ahsoka is an all right character. She starts off incredibly annoying and remains annoying for quite a while. But she eventually finds her footing, comes into her own, and becomes a decent character. But I struggle to understand how there could be such a large number of people who find her to be the best Star Wars character, period. In all of Star Wars, she is the number one best character. I don't get it. But then it shouldn't, or my opinion there shouldn't be that highly held, in that I, after watching the Clone Wars, have a very clear and definitive favorite character of Star Wars. By far my favorite, no one comes close, and that is Captain Rex. I fucking love Captain Rex. My favorite thing about the Clone Wars, and I'm so happy we get a fair amount of it because it is called the Clone Wars, is whenever the show dives deep into the clones themselves and what they're going through and what it's like being a clone, and when you have ones diverging from their main programmed objective. When we see, for instance, the one deserter who started his own family, or when we have ones questioning their purpose and if they're just meant to be this fodder for the army, or the one general Jedi who was using them basically as throwaway fodder in battle, who he didn't care about their lives at all. They were basically tools to be discarded for his objective. That was the best. It's one of the best arcs of the series. The best arc is probably the final arc in season 7, where Ahsoka really shines, as does Captain Rex. But I really have come to love not only Captain Rex, but the clones in general, because I think they're such an interesting part of the Star Wars universe that was never really explored until the show. And if you don't see the show, you're never going to get that because it never made its way really into any of the other stuff. You get in Bad Batch, which is, I mean, the Bad Batch is essentially just a continuation of the Clone Wars to an extent. You're missing certain characters, but others come back, as they do in Rebels as well. One of the things about the animated shows too is that they all tend to be slow starters and have rougher first seasons, and then start to refine their groove with the second season onward. But the Clone Wars overall is really good. It's a show of highs and lows, but the highs are maybe the highest highs in all of Star Wars. When it really hits on all fronts, it's so good. That final arc is fan fucking tastic. And with the Bad Batch, it was just nice to get more of that general vibe. I think that show did Tech very dirty, who was probably my favorite of the group. And when he sacrificed himself, it's understandable why they didn't take the time to reflect upon it and grieve and all that, because they were still trying to get the girl back. But once they retrieved her and had the time to really think about what had happened, they never bothered to do it. And that kind of irked me the rest of that series and season. But overall, that was a good show. Rebels to me didn't quite work. It has a lighter tone to it. It is more kid centric, but more in the like 12-year-old range. Not super young skewed, but definitely younger skewing than the Clone Wars. And what really hurt Rebels for me in the long run was the fact that Ezra was very much so like Ahsoka in that he was really annoying to start. However, unlike Ahsoka, he never got better for me. He maybe got a little bit less annoying, but overall, I never really liked him. And the rest of the show, the rest of the characters, the crew was fine, but it just never quite did it for me. Where Rebels excels over all other Star Wars movies, shows, etc., is in its portrayal of droids. All of the droid stuff in Rebels, fantastic. I absolutely loved anytime droids got the focus in an episode. But outside of that, whenever the humans were, I was like, eh. I think it's also funny how both the Clone Wars and Rebels made Darth Maul, like it's just Maul at this point, into a far less menacing character. He was imposing and menacing in not no pun intended in the Phantom Menace. But in the Clone Wars, he becomes this kind of weaselly, no backbone character who loses all of that menace, loses that ability to be scary, imposing, just like, all right. And in Rebels, it's just like, why are we getting more of them? Why? Can we just move on, please? Young kid Boba Fett in the Clone Wars, annoying. I hate Boba Fett so much. I'll get to that a little bit later. But also my rewatch, you notice things too in the grand rewatch, like powers that you didn't even realize Jedi had slash have, but don't utilize often, and it doesn't make sense why they don't, because it would just break everything. That's why they don't. It my number one example is in the Phantom Menace, right at the beginning. You have Obi-Wan and was it Qui-Gon using force speed to zip around so fast. And why aren't fucking if they can do that, why aren't Jedi just fucking flashing around all over the place? All the time, all over the place. Why aren't they doing that? I don't understand it. It doesn't make any fucking sense. There's so many instances where they could have just used force speed to get around a situation. Their ability to manipulate objects with the force and so on is so plot based. If you take any time to think about it, the force is nothing but a plot device. It's not a power system with any kind of rules or consistency. It's just there as a plot device. Oh shit, there's this thing they have to deal with. How are they going to deal with it? With the force. Oh, they're fucking stuck in this situation. How are they going to get out of it? The force. That's all it is. And that can be a little bit frustrating, but once you realize that Star Wars is not about rules or consistency or any of that shit, you just go along for the ride. You just have fun with it and don't worry about the fact that this doesn't make sense or that doesn't make sense or this thing happening here means why haven't they been doing it all this time? Why it breaks this, it breaks that. For instance, with what is it, The Last Jedi, when they do the light speed hyperspace thing where she flies the ship into the other one and destroys it. You say, why aren't they doing that all the time? Because nothing makes sense and fucking the thing's broken already. It's been broken a million times over. But I still I enjoy it, and I've been enjoying it with this rewatch. I love Captain Rex. I love Captain Rex so much, I bought a figure of him. A not super cheap, not a super expensive, but a decently priced figure of him because I love him that much. But with some of the later live action stuff, I was reminded of how much I hated some of it. Specifically, Obi-Wan Kenobi, I hate because little Princess Leia is one of the most annoying characters ever. I hate the way she is, and part of it is that I just hate the girl they cast. I hate her stupid little fucking face. I hate the fact that she can't run for fucking shit. She is so slow, and she looks like she's running slower than any normal person walks when she's running. When she's in the woods running around, dodging all these people trying to capture her for a longer time than it should have been happening, doesn't make any fucking sense. When she's on the roof being chased by Obi-Wan, because she's like, oh, this guy seems not, he seems shady. I'm going to fucking run away from him. And they're doing all that. How the fuck doesn't he catch up to her? And then she's like standing and waiting over this ledge to see if she wants to jump to the other roof. And she's spending way too much time thinking about it. She's like, oh, what am I going to do? And she finally takes the leap and she leaps like fucking a foot and fucking falls down. And then Obi-Wan uses the Force. He's weak. He hasn't been practicing. So he's like, but he gets her. And then he stops her from dying after, I don't know, like 10 stories. And then he fucking is already on the ground floor. How the fuck did he get down there so fast? You use Force speed? You remember how to use Force speed so fast? What the fuck is going on here? Fucking bullshit. But I hate her stupid fucking guts. The one general lady, though, in that show, really like her. That show fucking sucks. But the Book of Boba Fett is so much worse. Obi-Wan has at least some redeeming moments. But the Book of Boba Fett is just so bad because I don't understand why they feel the need to constantly try and make Boba Fett into a cool character, a relevant character. I'm assuming it's because there's still just so much love for him in the community and his merchandise sells and all that shit just because he has a cool look. But I don't give a fuck. He's a stupid character that you just make worse and worse and worse the more you put him in stuff. In the Book of Boba Fett and the Mandalorian, he is just this fat, pathetic old man portrayed by this dude who can't act. And I wish, even though it doesn't make sense, I know, cast someone else. He fucking sucks. All right? He can't act. And in the Book of Boba Fett, it's just so pathetic. This stupid 50s biker gang fucking shit. Are they made up of Spy Kids actors or something? Because I think I read that somewhere because Robert Rodriguez has a big hand in the Book of Boba Fett. They all fucking suck. They look stupid. The visual effects when they're riding their bikes look awful. Show sucks except for when it has 2 Mandalorian episodes in the middle of it. Mandalorian I still love overall. But that reminds me, I forgot to mention The Acolyte, which was one of the first things I watched live action wise. Maybe the first thing. It was my first time watching it, and what a mixed bag of a show that is. It is my third favorite show, though, because while I hate the twins, I love Chimera. I love the Stranger. I think he is such an interesting character. He is number 4 in my all-time list. I had him at number 3, but then I said, we've gotten so little of him just in the Acolyte, and because of the Acolytes, I feel like it was well received critically and did decent numbers, but then the vocal minority is like, we hate this, and Disney folds like fucking crazy. Just look at Rise of Skywalker. It's just Disney giving in to the vocal minority being a bunch of little stupid fucking babies. I hate Rise of Skywalker is by far the worst thing in all of Star Wars because the Book of Boba Fett is embarrassing. The Rise of Skywalker is legitimately damaging to the property. It's not irredeemable, but it has hurt the property. So I think we're already kind of over it, but it definitely did do damage. But Chimera is such an interesting character to me because I so often think of the way Star Wars portrays Jedi and the Sith as light and dark, good and evil, black and white. No real room for gray, no real gray area. But with him, one, you see genuine emotion when the one twin puts on the helmet and she's kind of struggling in it and he wants to go and take it off. You see him show concern, which is like, oh shit. I don't feel like Sith ever show concern. Like, oh, my apprentice is fucking up. Well, then I guess they're just not a good enough apprentice. And his whole attitude, while he's going to extremes and maybe not going about it the best way, is one that I find very interesting in that it's more so about wanting the freedom to do what he wants. Because the way the whole thing is portrayed with the Jedi and everything is that they find out you're force sensitive, they're gonna come and get you and teach you, train you, and all that jazz, and it's not really up to you. You don't have a choice if you are force sensitive. You have to abide by these rules and these laws and so on and so forth. And his mentality is just because I'm force sensitive, I have this gift, I should be able to do what I want with it. Who are you or anyone to say what I can or cannot do with this? And I can understand that. And I think he's just a fascinating character that I wish we would get explored more, but probably never will. Hopefully, though, he has enough of a following that we will get a figure of him, a statue of him at some point, because I will buy that day one. I will pre-order it day one. But I just about finished the first episode of Ahsoka, and so far I'm not enjoying the vibe of that at all. So not looking forward to watching more of that. And then I have the Skeleton Crew, and I'll finally be able to put Star Wars behind me, I guess, and Andor as well. Though I'm really scared that they're gonna fuck things up with season 2. We didn't need a season 2, and I just hope. I hope it's all right. Yeah, Star Wars, huh? It's a lot. You know what else is a lot? Anime, and I've watched a fair amount of anime. So in terms of the most recent season, the stuff I watched during the season, mainly just Doctor Stone, The Apothecary Diaries, and Solo Leveling. Apothecary Diaries is 2 show, so it's continuing on into the next season. But that continues to just be a really fun slice of life, cozy-ish, pleasant show that I really, really love, in large part because I think the main cast is very enjoyable. Mao Mao is a great protagonist, and I like the way she interacts with the not eunuch, the prince. The last episode was great, especially coming off of one of the weaker episodes of the entire series where they were talking about ghost stories. I did not like that episode at all. But this last one, where they try and assassinate the prince, they end up in the cave, and they're doing a lot of dick humor in it, dick and balls. And I wasn't expecting them to go that hard on all of that, comparing it to a frog, a slimy frog, and a frog, some frogs, they can get kind of big. You've got a very impressive frog. I wasn't expecting all that, and that was amusing. And then I especially wasn't expecting him to go as hard in the, you want me to prove it to you? Lifting up one of her legs and getting in position. I'm like, fucking, what is going on here? What is happening? How far is this going to go? It's not the same as your typical, ooh, we tripped over and I fell on top of you in a kind of missionary position. No, this is like, I'm ready to go. All right. One leg up. I'm ready to start thrusting. I'm like, whoa, whoa, pump the brakes. You just jumped ahead way too fast. You went from 0 to 60, dude. And her entire reaction to that is also my reaction was just like, what? What? I really like the show though. It's just a lot of fun. Solo Leveling is hype the anime. That's what it is. It's really enjoyable. Preface all of what I'm about to say with the fact that I gave it a 9 out of 10 this last season because it is a lot of fun, but it's also very superficial. As fun as Solo Leveling is to watch, and it is a lot of fun to watch, and it looks great most of the time. When it needs to look great, it looks great in the fights and all that. But sometimes when you just have characters talking, I think mostly about the little mining subplot. And there was that one dude was like, "I don't like the cut of this guy's jib," and his fucking face, he just looked gnarly as hell. But when it needs to look good, it looks good. But the main issue with Solo Leveling is that, and why it could never reach 10 out of 10 stats for me ever. 9 out of 10 is even kind of a stretch. I'm being generous with that. It's more of an 8 out of 10 because what is his name? Jinwoo. I'm terrible with names. Something I want to get better at. But he is just way, way, way too OP at this point. In that he never, ever, ever struggles with anything. He just takes down any adversary so easily. And even if they get a little hit on him or he comes across an enemy, he's like, "Oh, you're a little tougher than I was expecting. Okay, let me just do this, 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 and this. Okay, no problem. Dead." Even with the big old ant enemy, he gets in that lick on him with the poison. It was like, "Oh, this is not looking good for him. Oh wait, never mind. He's good. He's fine. He does this little thing. All right, all right." Now he's unlocked immediately this slice and dice ability, and he keeps using it, and it's just leveling up to its highest level. And now he just destroys this ant. And it's like, all right, cool. I mean, you're fucking badass and everything, but also, I never really, I never really have to worry about anything. And so many of the side characters don't get explored enough to the point where I actually care about their well-being. So if one dies or multiple die, okay, fine, they're dead. Whoop-de-doo. We'll replace them with some other characters. It's not like, for example, Jujutsu Kaisen, which, spoilers, if you haven't watched or aren't all caught up, when Nanami dies, that fucking hit. That hurt because he was one of, if not maybe my favorite character at that point. And when he dies, how he dies, it was, uh, it hit. There is nothing like that on in Solo Leveling, and there's nothing that could happen on Solo Leveling that would feel that way to me. Because if it happened with Jinwoo, the main character, I'd be like, okay, are you really dead? And if it was, I'd be like, oh, I guess that's the end of the show. Okay, and all the other characters, I'm like, I haven't felt enough for any of you. There are a few that I'm kind of growing attached to, but nothing yet. So that is the big hindrance for Solo Leveling, but it's still a great show, of course. And then Doctor Stone just continues to be a consistent 7 out of 10 since its inception. It just is good, but it's never great. The first season, maybe because it was a nice premise and I liked the initial part of coming out of this stone time, I may have given that an 8, but overall, the show is just a consistent 7 out of 10. Good, not great, enjoyable little thing. Then a few other things I watched. I caught up and finished Blue Box, which ended this season. It started in the previous season, ended this season. Uh, Romantic comedy about a freshman, a first year and a second year in high school. Both of them striving to achieve certain levels in sports. So the boy is a badminton player. He wants to reach nationals, and The girl is on the basketball team. She ends up moving in with the boy's family because her family's moving away, but she wants to stay at the school, be on her team, strive for nationals and all that. And her mom and the boy's mom were former teammates back in the day, and they're friendly, so that's how that happens. And he has feelings for her, doesn't know how she feels about him. Then he also has this other friend who's a girl who has feelings for him, and she later admits it, but he eventually does turn her down. It's just a really pleasant, cute anime that handles the romantic angles very, very well and very, very realistic. The stuff with the friend who likes him is handled very well. I know some people were really hoping for them to be together. Obviously, that was never in the cards, but I didn't like her. The more as that went on, I feel like when she admitted she liked him and said, "You don't have to answer," and didn't even want him to answer right then and there, she put him in this situation where he now knows that's in the wild, and that's clearly what she wants. But what frustrated me, because I have personal experience with this, is just saying, you know, I just wanted to let you know this, and you can tell me how you feel down the line. Basically saying, I'll let you know that this is how I feel, and then you can figure things out for your own and tell me how you feel when you realize one way or the other. But she's constantly throwing in little hints, reminding him of how she feels and all that. And I'm like, just shut the fuck up, be his friend, and let him marinate on the knowledge that you like him as more than a friend. Don't keep poking at the bear. So that made me like her less and less as a character. But that wasn't the case for a lot of other people. And I don't think there's any meanness in the way he lets her down when he finally does. It was something she needed to hear. And I think he did it in a very as nice a way as you can of telling someone that you don't like them. But I mean, it's better than just letting her continue to think that there's a chance when clearly there's never going to be a chance. She just needs to accept that. So that's a very good show. And then I did watch Delicious in Dungeon. I thought that show was fine. People talk that show up so highly. I don't understand. It is very samey all the way through to the end. It does throw in some more emotional things and introduce certain elements, but even then, I just I thought it was fine. I thought it was fine. It looks good. I really like the dwarf. He's a lot of fun, but it was just fine. Perfectly fine. And then Sakamoto Days, this is what I forgot about. And I think a lot of people forgot about because it was maybe after Solo Leveling, the second most hyped show of the season. And I think the fact that it ended up being just an okay show made people talk about it and remember it even less than they would have if it wasn't so hyped in going into the season. Because it's enjoyable, but it it didn't live up to the hype. The animation overall, pretty solid. I enjoy these characters. I don't really like the whole Sakamoto can become skinny when he exerts enough energy, I guess. I don't like that angle. It's weird to me. I wish he was just chubby the whole time, and if he ever got skinny again, then that's what happened, but not this, "Oh, I use a lot of energy, so now I'm skinny again, and then I immediately become chubby again after I eat some food after the fight's over." 'Cause, I get skinny when I get really serious, whatever. But The thing that really bothered me most about the show was the art. Some of the characters don't look bad. I think the main cast looks pretty solid, but some of the enemies they fight throughout look so fucking stupid. The ones I come back to mostly or more than others are the twins from early on in the season, maybe about episode 3. They look so bad, especially the one who has like the cowl covering his face, the lower half of his face. He has no neck. His proportions are so fucking weird. The overall quality of the art is not to my liking. It reminds me style wise of, I forget the name of the studio, but it's the studio that put out, I think they put out the second season of One Punch Man. And I don't know why the show I always attribute to them is, I think it was Shimoneta. What's it like living in a world without underpants? I don't remember the exact name of that title or that show, but it kind of reminds me of that style, but just a notch above it. Not as rough and kind of icky as that as their stuff is, because their stuff can look all right, but when they get into the more dirty and browns, grays color palette, things kind of look mucky. The second one of Days is fine. There's some solid episodes. I like the characters, and I'll watch additional seasons, but I'm not as in love with it as I was hoping for. I signed up for Netflix for Netflix no ads for that show specifically, and then I got to watch Blue Box as well. And then other than that, is there anything else to talk about? I don't think so. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Other than what I'm currently watching, I've watched 2 episodes of A Sign of Affection. I don't know if I'm gonna stick with this because I love romantic anime a lot. This doesn't feel romantic though. It doesn't feel like a romance anime. It feels like an infatuation anime. It feels like a female gaze dream anime where it's just, hey, look at this pretty boy's. I'm not getting the romance from it. I'm just getting infatuation, and I hate the way the characters are colored in that all of them have blushy noses. So there's like blush indicating where their noses are. So you get this little redness there, and it looks weird to me. I don't like it. It really bothers me. But 2 episodes in, I was just like, I'm not I'm not feeling this. I don't get why do you like this dude? That first episode where she gets his details, I think, and then it's like just dancing there, and I don't think that's in her head, and he's like fucking excited about. I'm like, what is going on? What am I watching? So I'm not I'm not super jazzed about that. But the other one is Orb on the Movements of the Earth. This is a show that after the first episode, I dropped it because I really did not like the main character, Raffle. And then maybe a few weeks later, I decided to give it another shot because I know it's really well regarded. People love it. And I wanted to try it out. And I was like, okay, I'll give it the 3-episode rule, which is usually followed in anime. You give an anime 3 episodes. If it doesn't grab you by then, move on. And I don't know if there is a better example of an anime where the 3-second rule is so important. Because, spoilers, at the end of the 3rd episode, Ruffle dies. And I am not sure if I've watched the 4th episode now. I'm not sure if this is a thing that is going to continue happening where the actual quote unquote star of the show is this necklace that is going to move from person to person over generations as they are, because the show is about trying to, or it's about the question of Earth and the sun and what rotates around what and all that and heretics and all that jazz. And I'm very interested and invested in it now after what happened at the end of episode 3 because that surprised me, and it's not often I'm surprised by fiction 'cause it's easy to see where shows are going. Things are often telegraphed, and that wasn't the case here. I did not think that was gonna happen, and the fact that it did has me very intrigued. So, I am excited to watch more of that. And then I just remembered, yeah, there's also Bleach. So after getting through that arc where they stop the girl from being executed and Aizen reveals himself as this villain, I have heard that it goes downhill from here, I think. And since I wasn't loving the show up until that point, it's a 6 out of 10 for me. Because fine. I don't really care about any of these characters. I'm probably going to hold off and watch the rest of it dubbed because I would rather be able to get through it easier than watching all of it subbed. But that's where I am with that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. I think with this following season, Kaiju at number 8 is returning along with Dandadan, or is that the next season? If this upcoming season is Kaiju number 8 and Dandadan, those are clearly the 2 ones I'm most excited about. Loved Kaiju 8 or season 1, and Dandadan was fantastic up until that last episode, which ended in such a bullshit way. It wasn't even a cliffhanger. It basically just ended in the middle of a story. Just like, oh, all right. It felt like there should have been one more episode. It really left a sour taste in my mouth, and I think a lot of people. But the ride was still so enjoyable that people forgave it. And I'm down for it. Give me more of it. I love his cursed look, and regardless of all that shit, I just wanna watch that romance flounder because it really is a romance anime. You can say it's not, but we all know it's really a romance anime. But yeah, that is gonna do it for this here second attempt at a return for Animezingly Baka. So hopefully you enjoyed this meandering, no preparation, middle of the night recording that this is the night before. I started recording this episode at the end of March and finished it beginning of April. So March 31st, April 1st, April Fools. Da. But yeah, that is going to do it for this here episode of Animezingly Baka. Once again, I am Marcus, and as y'all can find me pretty much everywhere at PX Sausage. If you enjoy this here show or any of the stuff I do and what have you, you can support me and my nonsense over at patreon.com/PXS. There you can get access to a monthly Q&A, a private Discord channel, along with some fancy Discord roles. And there's also the occasional watch party, a random drop of the Patreon here or there, depending on your tier. That whole spiel was out of order, but it is what it is. We're not going to redo it. But if any of that appeals to you, or you can just support me, if that is your fancy, that is again patreon.com/PXS. In addition to the Patreon, you can find links to the site, the YouTube, the Discord, and so much more over at pxsausage.com. That is the letter P, the letter X, sausage.com. And if you don't already know, I have returned to YouTube for streaming. Do that weekdays, 7 to roughly 11 p.m. Central Time. So if you want to chat and watch me play this game or that game, that is where you can do that. But that is going to do it for this here episode. As always, thank you for watching or listening. I hope you enjoy this here episode, and I hope you have both a wonderful rest of your day, lovely rest of your week and a wonderful weekend. But for now, adios, arrivederci.